Did I cause my breakup? Hold on, are you telling me that I caused my breakup? Well, you might be wondering the same thing about yourself, and that's what we're going to talk about. I think probably if you asked my ex, he would say that I caused my breakup. So I think what I want to do here is I'm going to discuss some of my bad behavior in my last relationship with my ex and how that could have led to a breakup, but I also want to discuss the reasons and bring it all back to you and whether or not you caused your breakup. Now, especially in the beginning of this relationship with my ex, I had a lot of bad behavior, and I'll get to the reasons for that, but I was a nasty person. I was not a nice person, and I was constantly saying mean things to him. I would be saying things like, why are you so stupid? Why are you so dumb? Why do you do these things? And kind of just like nasty things that I guess I considered as jokes, but they really weren't funny. They were just mean. I think another thing that I did, especially a lot in the beginning, was that I didn't do things with him and his friends. Like I didn't join them when they would come over. I didn't want to be around them, and I just generally kind of gave the impression that I was a loner, and if he wanted to do stuff with his friends, then that was for him to do with his friends. I wasn't going to be participating in that. As you can see right off the bat, we've got name calling, and we've got me kind of putting myself against him and as separate from him. Not a great way to start. This was something that continued on for a while. I would say for at least a year and a half of the name calling and the not really being present with him, and it led into things like me eventually calling him fat and generally like not wanting to touch him, not wanting to be with him whenever he would put hands on me. You know, physical affection's a part of any relationship, but I was pushing back against that. I didn't want any part of it. So you can see here why those would be painful things, and you could see how they would increase the distance between us and take away some of the intimacy of the relationship, which is really what's crucial when it comes to intimate relationships. You gotta have intimacy. As time went on, and this was about a year into the relationship, I was not doing well with the position that I was in at work, and we talked about it, and I decided to go and work for him. But very quickly, it was apparent to me that that was not the thing for me, and I basically stopped showing up for work with him. We figured out a temporary solution where I would do work at home, but even that I was very combative against, and I had a hard time with. I had a hard time getting work finished, and so eventually I just stopped working altogether, and he was just giving me a paycheck until the end of our relationship, really. Now, all the while, I was becoming more needy and more demanding, and I wanted to know, why was he not coming home from work fast enough? He should have been home for dinner. I wanted him to bring dinner home with him. I wanted groceries home. Like, I was just a demanding person. When he did come home, it was like all about me all the time. I always wanted to unload all the things from the day to him. I wanted him to hear about everything that I was going through, and basically I wasn't listening to him very much. Now at this point, we're basically talking like year 5 and 6 of the relationship, and at this point, even though I was home all day and I would get like, you know, minimal housework done, I wasn't accomplishing very much beyond that. You could see very easily how it would look like I was basically just a freeloader, staying at home, milking him for what he was worth, making demands, criticizing. Like, it just looks like a horrible situation from the outside. And I completely own that all of that was bad behavior. None of that was good. If you only heard that information, I think I would even say, like, obviously you caused that breakup, come on. So now I want to talk a little bit about why I did those things, so it doesn't look like they were just coming out of nowhere, so you have some context as to why they happened, and then get a little bit into maybe what he did. The year that I met my ex, I had come out of a relationship with somebody that I had been with for about 5 years, and there were months in between, but I was still learning a lot about myself after that relationship, and I basically learned that I exhibited all the symptoms of borderline personality disorder. One of the defining traits of borderline personality disorder is hostility, so those times when I was saying mean things to him and generally being mean to him, I would say that was stemming from symptoms of borderline personality disorder. I don't think that excuses it, but it does explain it. At the time, I was also in a job that I was having a really hard time with, as I mentioned, and I was also in school, so it was a lot of workload on me. Now, because I had been learning about myself, I knew that I was anxious a lot. That wasn't a surprise, and I made that very clear to him as soon as we got together, like within days. I'm pretty sure that first week I made it very clear I had problems with anxiety. And although, again, that may not excuse things, I communicated very clearly when I was feeling anxious, why I was feeling anxious, and that was part of the reason why I didn't always go out to meet friends, because it was too overwhelming for me. And actually, frankly, sometimes I just had schoolwork that needed to get done, and friends were not on the top of my priority list. I was also dissociating because of that T word that YouTube probably doesn't want me to say, but I was having a hard time with a lot of symptoms of mental illness that I didn't even realize I had a mental illness, like this particular mental illness. So that also contributed to why I behaved a lot of the ways that I did, especially in the beginning. I had been working on myself though, and I was aware of these problems, and my ex made me aware of the problems, and so whenever he made me aware of them, I worked on them. And after that first year or so, I stopped calling him names. I stopped being mean to him and being nasty to him. That was no longer something that happened ever from that point forward. Now, I will say that there was like those passive aggressive things that we all do sometimes to kind of tease our partner that really aren't very nice, but sometimes we just do them, and he did it a lot to me too, and I don't think that's really something I should excuse either. But in general, the real true nastiness, that ended. Okay, so when it came to me not touching him, not being physically affectionate with him, that started, as far as I remember, from him not being physically affectionate with me. Frankly, I can remember going to bed and trying to be like affectionate and trying to ask for hugs and kisses and whatnot, and I wasn't receiving them. So it might not be that hard to imagine my surprise when around 2 years in, he messaged me, or he emailed me actually, that he was not feeling loved in this relationship. He was not getting the physical affection that he felt he needed. And I was like, weird, okay. But then I also responded and reminded him of all the stuff I've gone through, my past, and the problems that I had with anxiety. And, you know, that was my way of communicating, and I kind of hoped we would work on it from there. Unfortunately, he never actually gave me that chance to work on it, because the very next day after sending that email, he began to cheat on me. So I didn't even have a chance to respond. I didn't have a chance to change my behavior. It was just like, okay, I'm going to tell you the problem and then just go ahead and cheat. Once I finally discovered that he was cheating, I hope that it's easy for you to understand why I would have a hard time with physical affection after that. Now, as far as working for my ex, that was something we had discussed for a while beforehand, and it wasn't something I was entirely comfortable with, but he kind of convinced me to do it, and I said, all right, you know what, let's give this a try. Unfortunately, what I found was that when I went to work for my ex, he was really mean and nasty to me, in many ways in the same way that former bosses had been to me, and that was not okay. I did not like it, and so I didn't know how to deal with it, and the best thing that I could do was to just stop showing up, and that's not a great way of communicating. It was wrong, I totally admit that, but I didn't know what else to do. I just left a situation where they weren't mean to me, but it wasn't my favorite job situation. It was really felt like torture at times, but then I just walked into another situation that was just as bad, and it was my boyfriend at the time who was treating me bad. This might actually be a good time to mention that he was also being mean to me and calling me names, even at home, and he was telling me that I was the wife and the mother, and I was expected to do chores because of that. It was not okay. The funny thing is, though, that even after he did the cheating on me, I still wanted physical affection from him, and I was actually trying to get it from him constantly. When he tried to give it to me, I would smack his hand away. That was not okay. I understand that, but whenever I tried to receive it from him, it's not like he was accepting of that either. So he was asking for something that he wanted, but then when I was giving it, it was not okay. He like shied away from it. He didn't want anything to do with it. So it was kind of funny that I kind of really wanted to get close to him and intimate with him, even though he cheated, and yet we still had the same problem. And that's really where I started becoming needy and demanding, and I wanted to know why he was at work so late, because in the back of my mind, you know, when somebody stays at work late, it's like, okay, you cheated on me, and you cheated on me when you were at work. Why would I not assume that it was still continuing? And really, after he cheated on me, all of that stuff from my past, the T word, the anxiety, it all came back, and I was dissociating like crazy. This is why I could just barely get like normal housework done, and I was asking about the groceries and stuff because I didn't trust myself. I had a driving phobia to even get to the store to get food. Overall, this was not a good situation between the two of us and the way that both of us were behaving. Now, if you ask me if I caused our breakup, I believe no, I did not, because I did not cheat. I do not feel that cheating is something that really should ever be accepted, even though I tried to continue on, even though he cheated multiple times. That's a boundary to me. Like, you just don't cross that. That's not acceptable. And throughout all the hard times that we had together, I was always communicating, and I was always pushing for us to do things to get better. I was pushing for us to spend time together. I was pushing for therapy. I was always looking for solutions to the problem, whereas it felt like he was always avoiding the problem, staying at work, cheating, basically increasing the distance between us. So what's the answer here when it comes to you and your situation? Everybody's situation's different. I don't think it's hard to see that with me and my my ex, we both had bad behaviors, and there were different circumstances that led to us having those bad behaviors. You know, I've left out a lot of his past because that's really not for me to talk about. And part of the reason why I tolerated things that I did and why I continued with the relationship was because I did know his past and I did understand and I was trying to work it out. What I've taken away from my relationship with my ex is all the bad behaviors that I did. I worked on them in the relationship, but then I worked on them even outside of the relationship. After we broke up, there was still stuff for me to work on, and I've continued to work on it, and I've seen improvement throughout the years. Although I think it can help me feel better when I think to myself, like, well, he caused the relationship because he did this, and this. It really doesn't matter that much in the end, because if I'm going to get any value out of what happened, and I know it's hard to have any kind of a value out of a breakup, but I have to look at, like, what can I do and what can he learn? And I can't control what he can learn. I can only control what I can do. So that's what I choose to do. I choose to work on the things that I can work on. And maybe for you, that's nothing. That's okay too. What do you think? Do you think there's something that you should be working on after this breakup? Let me know down below in the comments.